Hello everyone, welcome to Everything Arsenal. We are back again with Cozy. Arsenal have inquired about the availability of Onana. Could that transfer go through? Could that end up being our first signing? We will see. What does that mean for Thomas Partey, who has been linked to the move away to Saudi? Does Cozy think he's going to stay or end up leaving? Reece Nelson has asked to leave Arsenal. That's very interesting. I will also be talking about Tierney and Zinchenko and a couple of others as well. But first, Cozy, how are you?
I'm perfect. Very, 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 very well. Been watching the German game. Obviously, I was looking at Kai Havertz. Could he score again? And he turned up. So my evening is actually brilliant. Obviously, with the Euros and the transfers now officially on, there is nothing better. So I'm okay. I hope you're also doing very well.
Absolutely. So Kai Havertz, that's what you're going to start with. Just 2 minutes about Kai Havertz. Now, Cozy, who needs a striker when you have King Kai? Goal and assist every single day. He looked good. I was really praying you'd score that penalty, because the world is watching the first game. You don't
Yeah.
want, people to be like, okay, why is he starting instead of full crew? What did you make of his performance? And do you think he's going to actually start our games next season? The first game next season is going to be Havertz up front, whoever we buy.
He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. I think under Angel Nagelsmann, he's a very, very different player. I would actually say he's a better player for Germany than Arsenal. I think what you have at Germany is a manager that actually believes in him, trusts him,
Mm,
and also
mm.
understands him. He's a very, very different animal. And I think when I saw his first assist before he scored, I was like, this is the Kai Havertz I want to see at Arsenal next season. He's so confident. He makes the right decisions. He makes the right runs. The players around him really look like they understand him. I think he's unbelievable. I still think he's going to be Arsenal's number 9. I've seen a couple of reports today saying that the more he scores, the more he assists, the more Arsenal don't think about buying a striker. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's naturally going to happen. But I think he's going to become Arsenal's consolidated number 1 for quite some time, number 9 for quite some time. Next season, yes, I think after the Euros, he will have some period of rest. We might not see him in preseason, but come the
Yeah.
first game of the campaign, we are going to see him as the number 9. He will play right from game 1 to game 38 if he doesn't pick up injuries as Arsenal's number 9, regardless of who comes in.
That assist that he got the ball, and I thought some people would say, "Why didn't he shoot?" Because he had time
Yeah,
to shoot. A striker would shoot there,
yeah.
or don't you? Do you look at that as a concern? Like it takes a bit of time, or do you think it's okay as long as he picks up the assist and he knows what he's doing? That's fine, because they had some space to just hit it on his left foot right
Yeah.
away, but he decided to like wait and then turn and then pass the ball.
Well, I mean, we've talked about the killer instinct. I don't think he's a number 9. I don't think he's Robert Lewandowski. I don't think he's Karim Benzema. Those players are hungry, and all they think about is hitting that ball straight into the back of the net. I think with Kai Havertz, it's about understanding the system that he plays in. He understands that system better. When you look at that cutback, he knows Musiala is going to be there. He knows that there is someone who's going to be running into that space. And that's why when you look at his runs for Germany, they're always away from that middle of the goal, not towards the middle of the goal, but they're always away because there's Musiala, there is Florian Wirtz. They're always going to be running into that space. And I think he understands them and they understand him. So I think for Germany, if you're the manager, that is what you want him to do. You don't want him to crowd that area. You actually want him to free space. That is where Gundogan won the penalty. Again, Kai Havertz, if he's there, I don't think Gundogan wins that penalty. That is
Mm.
where Musiala scores his goal. Again, very, very good, brilliant movement from him. So for Arsenal, the question is, can we get the combinations that he has for Germany for him? There is a question. If we cannot get those combinations, then that is going to be a concern. Why isn't he hitting balls first time? Why isn't he barring them first time? But if we can get those combinations very well, if we can get Odegaard playing those balls through and Kai Havertz, running onto them and then cutting them back, and then maybe you have Trossard or Martinelli or Saka, benefiting from them, then we don't have a problem really.
Right. So the transfer window is officially open. So let's get to the transfer news now. We've been linked to a lot of midfielders this transfer window already. Bruno Guimaraes, that does look like it's going to go through. Douglas Luiz looks like he's going to end up at Juventus. We've been linked to Zubimendi, been linked to Joao Neves, and many others for fun as well. We've also been linked to Onana, and this is the news that came out last night. According to reports from a very good source from Everton, Arsenal have inquired for the availability of AMADOU Onana. A potential sale before June 30th could prove a blow for Man United, as Everton would be able to stay firm in their valuation for Branthwaite. So, according to reports, Kazi, it looks like Arsenal have inquired about Onana. There's also this. Sky Sports understands a Champions League club has made an official inquiry to Everton regarding midfielder Amadou Onana. The 22-year-old Belgium international is expected to leave this summer and is valued at around 50 million. So, Kazi, do you think this is the midfielder we are going to see? Because the Champions League team, and they say Champions League team, probably us. I don't think it's Man City. I don't think it's Liverpool. It could be Aston Villa because they're selling Douglas Luiz. You never know. They could want Onana there. But let's assume it's Arsenal because the Everton outlets is saying that Arsenal have inquired about Amadou Onana. Do you think this is the guy that says going to go for this the guy that we're going to pick?
Well, I mean, I've seen also a report from the BBC confirming that Arsenal are the club that have made the inquiry to Everton to explore the conditions on Amadou Onana. Now, personally, I think that interest has been there, and of course, we have reports that the Onana deal has sailed on. Arsenal are no longer interested, this and that, blah blah. But I think the interest has always been there right from January. Arsenal have always shown interest in Amadou Onana. Is it the midfielder we are going to go for? I won't be shocked really if Arsenal go for Amadou Onana this summer. Because again, we talked about on this show so many times. What are we looking for? We are looking for a young midfielder we can mold into what Mikel Arteta wants. We're looking for cover for the first team. We're not looking for someone that comes in and impacts right away. We're not looking for someone that comes in and boom, next season he's playing against Real Madrid or he's playing against Bayern. I don't think so. We're just bringing in someone who can provide a little bit of cover, but also be groomed into what Mikel Arteta wants in that role. And maybe when Mikel looks at Amadou Onana, physical, agile, mobile, he's a powerhouse, he's a dynamite of a guy, and he's like, this guy can be my next Thomas Partey. This guy can be my next, Lodri, right? I mean, it depends on how coachable he is. It depends on how, how flexible he is as a player. And I think that is when we talk about the 180 pages of scouting, those are the things they look into a player, especially when it comes to his psychology. How flexible is he in terms of you are an 8 predominantly, but we want you to become a number 6. There's a clear example of Declan Rice. He's built his career around around that number 6 role, ball winner, defensive midfielder, one of the best in Europe. And when he comes in at Arsenal, Mikel says, "I can see you as a goal-scoring midfielder. I can see you as a goal scorer, as a creator in this team." And we have seen the benefits of that: 15 goal contributions, 16 goal contributions, really in the Premier League. That is like immense, from Declan Rice. So I'm not surprised that Mikel Arteta is looking at Amadou Onana. And he's interested in his profile and he thinks he can actually do a job on him. Now, it's still very early to say he is the midfielder we are going to come in because, again, when a club goes in to explore the conditions on a deal, that means that they like the player, but they would love to know whether the valuation is is fair. I mean, Everton, if they're quoting anything above what Arsenal feel is the right price, we might not even see any developments on this deal. But I still think if Everton and Arsenal can agree a deal, Amadou Onana is a Mikel Arteta profile.
Now the other thing is, as you said, if BBC have also confirmed that Arsenal the club, I would imagine that Arsenal the club. Yeah, I wouldn't think that Aston Villa are going to get him there. They're getting players like McKennie anyway, and they could go for a different kind of midfielder. And they're saying 50 million is valued at around 50 million. Now we talked about Onana like a week ago, and I think you said something like you'd be willing to pay like 30 or something. And they want 50 now. Do you think it's worth that?
Sure. The reason as to why I'm willing to pay 30 million or 25 million for Amadou Onana, it's not to disrespect him as a player, but this comes from me thinking that the profile is not what Arsenal need immediately right now. Like if Arsenal went out there and splashed big money on Joao Neves, I would understand. That is the profile we need right now. Or if we went in and brought a player like I mean, we've just watched, Robert Andrich at Germany. Classic number six. Maybe didn't have the best game, for Germany against Scotland, but classic number six. And when you look at his game, he's all about ball winning. He's all about, just grabbing the ball from the opponent, and then he will, entrust it with, with the smarter players. I look at Amadou Onana as a number eight. And if Arsenal make a mistake and they get this one wrong, we are going to have a player collision where you have Declan Rice and Amadou Onana colliding, in the same role. I think Declan Rice is irreversible now. I don't think you tell him to go back in the six. I don't think we've just talked about Tony Kroos and his performance for the first in the first game for Germany. I don't think that is Declan Rice. I don't think it's Rodri. We're going to see better defensive midfielders. In terms of holding the midfield and just having so many touches. I don't think that is Declan. So I think with Amadou Onana, Arsenal have to be spot on that he is in the profile of a flexible, coachable player that is going to turn into a Thomas Partey. Otherwise, I think his profile is available. We've got what he's got at Arsenal. So for us to go and pay another 50 million on top of the 100 we paid, or we paid for Declan Rice, I'm not 100% convinced. So for me, I would just part with 30 million because he's good, he's young, he's an opportunity on the market. 30 million, that would do the deal. 50 million, kind of an overestimation.
Yeah, so as I've made my midfield thoughts on the midfield clear, and I've always said if Partey is there and Rice is there, and Onana gets signed or Fofana gets signed, and we can bring in Onana for the last 20 minutes for Partey, or you can bring in Onana for Declan Rice. Sometimes he can start and Declan Rice can rest. Absolutely no problem. But it's looking like because this guy could be coming in, I'm starting to feel like as a replacement for Partey. I'm really starting to feel like that way.
And also, just in the last 48 hours, there's been talk from James McNicholas, working with the Athletic. Most people know him as the Ghana bloke. That Arsenal are looking at bringing in two midfielders, one defensive and the other an attacking profile. Now, if Arsenal are looking to bring in two midfielders, I don't think Amadou Onana is the attacking profile. I think he is the defensive profile. I don't see him as the attacking profile. So maybe, right? Maybe Arsenal might be preparing for a massive exodus in that midfield as well. It's not only Elneny who's going to leave. We might have to see another two departures in midfield, and then we see two arrivals in midfield as well.
Speaking of players who could leave, Thomas Partey. According to the Foot Insider, Thomas Partey is closing in on a summer move to Saudi Arabia. Sources have told Football Insider. Arsenal are believed to have set an asking price of between 20 to 25 million pounds for Partey, as a move to the Saudi Pro League now looks to be on the card. So it's looking more likely every single day. Last season it was looking like, yeah, he could leave, but he ended up staying. But I'm starting to feel like there's a big chance of him leaving. The injuries, and his birthday was a couple of days ago. He's just turned 31. I think he's on a big wages in terms of contract. His contract is ending next season. So there's a lot of reasons why Arsenal would want to get rid of him. Now, we want him to stay. We wanted to stay, and have him there as an option. But the way the players were being linked to, and I don't think you're going to have a situation where, because you said we're going to have several players in midfield, we are going to have to get rid of a couple to balance the books and all that. So Partey is linked to Saudi Arabia because the first up, do you think is actually going to end up leaving? I've already made peace with that. I've already started
I've already made peace with the fact that Partey will go, and most people that have asked me have said I've already told them, and I told you as well. I see it as a 70% chance he goes. Now that 30% chance is where Arsenal and Partey agree to let him run his deal down and then leave on a free and go wherever he wants to go and make big money. Maybe goes to Saudi Arabia after 32, right? But I've already made peace that he's going to leave Arsenal. I don't think that Arsenal are really in the same position where we were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where Lacazette could just live on a free, where Aubameyang had to live on a free, Ozil had just to live on a free. I think we have gone past that. And the problem with our fan base is When a player like Aubameyang and Ozil live on a free, they're not happy about it. But when we say we should sell Partey while we can still get some money, they're still not happy with that.
Mm.
I am not really sure where, and I understand the appreciation for Thomas Partey, but the thing is, it is time we get some good money out of Thomas Partey. And this time, Saudi Arabia have come knocking for the second time, in a row. I don't think you're going to get better than that. 25 million. It's a kind of an evaluation of the player. Really, I think it signifies how much Mikel Arteta rates him. It signifies
Mm.
how important he is to Arsenal, and to let him go, Arsenal, like, we are reluctant. I think that figure is not about, well, he is one of the players that we are really looking to keep, but it's about, he is really important to us. We are still reluctant to let him go. So I don't think so, Arsenal 100% sold on to the idea of selling him. I think there is still a window where he stays, like what we've seen with Sesko. He wants to leave, but then he stays at Leipzig. So I think with Partey, Arsenal would really want to get some cash, but there's still a window where we could see Arsenal keep him at the club.
That's true. That's why we are like 50-50 because it's 70
Yeah.
30. You can't tell, man. But there's a lot of reasons why. Especially if we need the money. I know Paul would say, fine, sell Vieira instead, and all those guys. It's different, Partey's 31 now. He's in his last year. The injuries have been too many. He almost misses half the games the last 3 seasons. He's on high wages and all that. So there's a lot of reasons why they would want Partey to leave. And there's obviously other things going on off the pitch. I don't know if they've ever ended. So there's a lot of reasons why they would want Partey to move on. And as Koze said, if it gets to next year, you're losing him in a freak. I've seen some people saying give him a new contract and all that. Nah, I don't think he's going
No,
to get a new contract.
no, no,
Not
no,
even
no,
1 year, not
no,
even
no.
8 months. The only way we can get money for him is right now, and I think that's the only way you can sell him. There's not too many teams that could pay that money apart from Saudi Arabia. Now, something we can't afford to do next season. Ideally, most of us would want Partey for sure, but something we can't do next season is to carry injured players.
Yeah.
Next season, we need everyone there. If you're missing games, 5-6 games at most. We can't have another season where we start and then Partey's missing
Uh,
20
uh,
games again.
yeah. I'm going to make a bold prediction for
Mm.
next season. Arsenal will suffer more injuries than we have suffered in the last 2 seasons combined.
Mm.
Because, like, literally, you've had the Euros. We have 10 players at the Euros. Like, no
Mm.
question. Obviously, you have the likes of Kieran Tierney, who should be leaving anyway. But we have 10 players at the Euros. So we are not going to have they're not going to have enough rest before the season starts. And then last season, we were using a squad of 14. A squad of 14.
Mm.
So those 14 players ideally are the same players at the Euros, ideally are the same players that are going to be playing for Arsenal next season. We might add around 3 or 4 more players, maybe the coming back of Julian Timber, 5. So we're going to have a pool of around 17, 18 players. We will suffer more injuries as compared to the last 2 seasons combined. And I think that's the key reason why Arsenal need to sign players that are not at the Euros, number one. And also, we need to get rid of players that look more susceptible to injuries. Even Jorginho, by the way, like, I'm not surprised that Arsenal are heavy on a midfielder, because they know keeping Jorginho is not the ultimatum. You've got to have a player that you can call your DM, and then Jorginho comes in to help that player, not that player actually coming in to help Jorginho. So I won't be surprised if Arsenal go crazy on a big DM. I won't be surprised if Arsenal go crazy, on a big good midfielder, because I think Mikel assesses injuries. That's one of the things you've got to assess in your squad. If you want to stay consistent, you've got to keep your players fit. And that midfield has played so many games, and they're consistent, but all of them are almost and now at the Euros. So you just can't say you're going to keep on with Partey and then you carry on. No, you just can't. So I think with Partey, still Arsenal have to look at the future, especially next season. If that is your ultimate season, then you've got to be as ruthless as you are, or as we were with Ramsdale. We've got to be as better as that.
It's going to be an interesting summer for sure. Now, let's turn our focus on the The wingers now. Let's start with Nico Williams. News came out yesterday that Arsenal are planning to make a move for Nico Williams this month after following his development for some time. Sources have told Court Offside Arsenal's interest in Williams, who has a 50 million euro release clause in his contract, is driven by Mikel Arteta. So first up, cousin, hearing that Arsenal are planning to make a move for Nico Williams, does that, like take your mood over the moon and you're like, yeah, thank goodness we were getting this way. You're like, nah, I'm not sure about him, and maybe another one. But Nico Williams is linked to us. So what do you make of that?
I'm 100% sure about him. He is a sensational talent. He can play on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. You're going to see him for Spain on the left-hand side. And I trust me, if you are not on the, if you're not supporting Spain, it won't be a pleasant, experience. Now, his release clause is actually incredible, like really, really incredible. With all these rumors going around, that Arsenal might not sign a striker because of the lack of opportunities and the lack of talent. Nico Williams is a massive shout, like really, really massive shout. I mean, we are talking about a young man that has the ability to compete directly with Trossard, Martinelli, and Saka, right? We are talking about a young guy that is benching players like Dani Olmo for Spain. We are talking about a player that is benching the likes of Ferran Torres, for Spain. I have no doubts about Nico Williams. And I also know that Arsenal followed him for quite some time. That's why that report is very, very, I would say a hit of dopamine for me. It's a very, very satisfying hit of dopamine, because is it like 1 year ago that we started getting links with him, since Pedro Neto, Wolves were asking for 70 million, 80 million. Arsenal looked at alternatives, right? We went in for Rafinha. Rafinha was expensive. He wanted to go to Barca. And then we looked at the younger talents. And Nico Williams, ever since then, has been one of the players that Arsenal have slowly but surely been linked with. We've monitored him, and we've looked at him. His release clause comes into effect this summer. If we can get him, I'm not sure we can, but if we can get him, that is a very good deal. That is a very, very good player.
For that price, I was so surprised. I was like, 50 million. I can't wait to see him playing for Spain, because I've watched him the last couple of games for Spain, and it's just been incredible on that left side. Like, it's kind of a younger version of Liao. I'd say Liao is more like, because he's played for more time. And so Nico Williams, you can see, I saw people in the comments saying it reminds them of Ronaldinho, the skill on the left side, dribbling and all that, the pace. Could
That's
this
too
be our
much.
next one? Could be our next Ronaldinho. Now they're talking about 50. Okay, it could be 58, 49, whichever. They're talking about some different figures, but it's somewhere between 45 million pounds and 55 million pounds, somewhere around there. So talking about 49 million pounds. That's an incredible price. Do you think this is a no-brainer, basically, at 49 million pounds, around 50 million euros, whatever, to get him?
It's a no-brainer for me. It's a no-brainer for me because he's one of those talents. He's one of those players. Remember when Man City signed Sane, and he actually did work out very, very much for them. But when they sold him for more money to Bayern Munich than they had actually they had paid to Schalke for initially. So I think he's one of those talents that his ceiling is up there. You know that he's going to be kind of a superstar. You just have to invest money in him and then invest time in him, and then he's going to be a world-class player. I don't have problems there. I think the price comes from the fact that he had signed a new deal and he hasn't renewed yet. It's kind of the Benjamin Sesko situation, and I don't think Atletico Bilbao are really sitting there holding their hands to their chest saying, anyone who has 49 million, please. I think they're trying to sign him on a new deal very, very hard and very, very quickly, because that is a 75 million euro player. That is a 65 million pound player, there in Nico Williams. If you think about how much wingers have been going for, let's talk about it. Rafinha to Barcelona. Arsenal willing to pay 66 million for Rafinha. And really, right? So for me, Williams is not that's not an expensive deal. That is a no-brainer. And I won't be surprised if he ends up in the Premier League not at Arsenal, but to another club. I've seen Manchester United working with figures around 35 to 45, Chelsea working with figures around 45 to 50. I think most of the clubs this summer are not looking at 100 million pound signings, 200 million pound signings. They're looking to bolster their squads in line with FFP. Can we get some good players for 40 million, 50 million? And Arsenal have actually had started very well. When you look at Onana,
Mm.
that's a good deal for less than 60 million. You look at Sesko, that would have been a good deal for less than 60 million. You look at Williams again, that's a very good deal for less than 60 million as well. So for me, it's a no-brainer. You go in there, you pay his release clause, and you know you bring in a player who's going to develop almost at the same level and at the same pace as Saka and Gabriel Martinelli. But why I also think it's a no-brainer is I think Arsenal need to start selling well. And this is
Mm.
about Arsenal, getting players that we can shift on and move on like Man City are doing. They could sell Alvarez for 80 million. Can you
Mm.
imagine? They could sell Alvarez for 80 million, and guess who's going to replace him? Savio from Girona, who is part of the City group, and they brought him for I don't know, like what, 20 million euros or even less than that. Like a year ago or 2 years ago. So I think in terms of that, it makes a lot of sense. Get these deals, take advantage of 45 million pound deals, and you could move on these players for 70 million. You could move on these players for 80 million. When they say we want to move on, we're not getting enough time, or so, like players like Ferran Torres, he said, I want to go to Barca. My dream is to play for Barcelona. And City just made their money, and it was simple as that. So it's a deal that makes a lot of sense in all angles.
5 goals, 12 assists in La Liga, eight
Yeah.
goals, 17
Yeah.
assists in all competitions. Are these numbers that get you excited, or are you like, he needs to add more goals to his game, or 25 goal contributions, you don't care even if it's 0 goals and 25 assists as long as he's getting the returns? Or do you think he needs to add more goals?
I think he's still young.
Mm.
It's kind of the case of Joao Neves, just that Joao Neves is very, very overpriced and very expensive. I think
Yeah.
uh, in most of the market deals we are going to see this summer, we are going to see more of prospect signing rather than deliver. I don't think right now if you want a player to deliver for you, Osimhen, 100 million. So I think in terms of the prospect, in terms of what Arsenal will get, right? I think it's okay. The numbers are all right. I mean, we've seen so many wingers. You're looking at them. We have been linked with Desire Doué. I think you look at their numbers and like, well, the trickery is there, the talent is there, but the numbers are still not, crazy numbers. But I think with him, Williams, you have numbers that are convincing, numbers that are going to improve and become better. And he's also playing in a Bilbao side that you don't expect them to
Mm.
have, you know, Vinicius Junior numbers, Rodrigo numbers, Kylian Mbappe numbers. Not really, right? I think they're kind of below in terms of the food chain, in Spanish football. So I think his numbers are okay. His numbers are, promising. They can go rapid. They can be made to go rapid, and especially if he can get regular team, a game time at a club like Arsenal, and of course, and a manager like Mikel Arteta. So I think his numbers are all right.
Now, if his numbers can be improved because he's young, he's 21, he's turning 22. I
Mm.
think he's turning 22 in July. So if you're saying his numbers can be improved and all that, can his playing position, because he's predominantly a left winger, he's played like 90% of the games as a left wing, and our left wing already has Martinelli and Trossard there. So do you think he will actually be used on the left side and Martinelli could actually move completely on the right side as you've seen the last couple of games? Or do you think Nico Williams will be used in both and maybe even go and just play with Saka on the right side? And that would be a nightmare for defenders. You will have a lot of rotation there.
Mm.
And I've always loved a player, a player who can come on even for Saka and whatever and give the defender still a hard time. Pace, dribbling, is very good at it. Why do you think he's going to play mostly for us?
I think in terms of positioning, he's predominantly played on the left hand side, but
Mm.
he's also got that very, very good, left foot. Now, with Mikel, one thing we have seen is he loves inverted wingers. He doesn't want direct wingers to cross in. Not really. He
Mm.
loves he loves direct wingers. So inverted wingers, no, sorry, not direct wingers. So because he's got that left foot, that is nice. And for Spain again, we will see him. He's going to be. He plays more of a traditional winger role on the left hand side. But at Bilbao, sometimes he's played on that right wing. He's inverted with his left foot, just like you've seen Saka. So I think that's what makes him, I think, stand out as compared to most of the prospects we have and most of the targets we have. That is very efficient on the left hand side, and it's also very efficient on the right hand side. Obviously, any player who can play on the left with his left foot is going to be very efficient on the right, because on the right you just have to cut in and maybe shoot, cut in, and kind of bring in those mini crosses that we've seen from Saka a couple of times, that have been nice. I mean, what I think there was one for Kai Havertz against Brentford in the first leg. I loved that. So
Trossard one against Chelsea.
yeah, the trusted one against Chelsea. Those kind of mini crosses, those kind of mini balls. So in terms of position, I don't think it comes in with a nailed position. Like, there's a lot of establishment at Arsenal. Saka is established. Martinelli, despite the fact that we undermined him, or maybe some people undermine him, he's actually established as well. And Trossard is established as well. So I won't be surprised to see Martinelli shift inside a little bit more, especially if Arsenal don't sign a centre forward. Martinelli shifting inside a little bit more. Nico
Yeah.
Williams partnering up with Trossard to form a long-term partnership, and then Gabriel Jesus partnering up with Saka to form that. If Saka is not around, then Gabriel Jesus comes in. But I think he's going to first and foremost do each and every role, right, that the manager has for him, as slowly but surely he finds where his position is in this Arsenal system.
When you get players in, that probably is at the expense of others. And Reece
Yeah.
Nelson has said, you know what? You have Saka, you have Trossard, you have Martinelli, you're being linked to a lot of wingers. What about me? Well, I think it's time to move on. And according to David Ornstein, Reece Nelson informs Arsenal he wants to assess options for potential transfer this summer. Arsenal rejected approaches in January, plus would want 20 million, including add-ons if they decide to sell. Crystal Palace, that is Fulham,
Yeah,
Nottingham
Fulham.
Forest, and West Ham among 24-year-old wingers suitors. Now, for you, Kozi, if it was just up to you, your decision, and you're sitting down with Nelson, would you tell him, listen, I feel like you're a good player. I actually want you to say I'm going to use you more. Or maybe even if I bring in Nico Williams, he's still going to play a few games here and there. Or do you think do you actually rate him? Do you think he could go to the next level, or do you think this is probably what he's going to be as a player? 14th, 15th on the table, and not really the player who's going to take it to a Premier League title.
I do rate him. I rate him
Mm,
highly, by the way,
mm,
but below top 7 on the Premier League
mm,
table. Like,
mm.
I wouldn't see him at a club like Brighton. I wouldn't see him at a club like Newcastle. I wouldn't see him at a club like Aston Villa. And this is my reason. When I think about Brighton, I think about Karo Mitoma. I think about Solimatch. I think those players are far more productive in terms of end product and output than Reece Nelson. When you think about Moussa Diaby and Leon
Bailey.
Bailey at Aston Villa, when you think about Gordon at Newcastle, I think the level of forwards and wingers at top 6, top 7, top 8 clubs are incredible. Does he start ahead of Bowen? He doesn't really. There's no question about that. So I rate him highly. I think he still plays in top 10. And I think the clubs that have actually been linked with him are the teams I would advise him. My conversation with him would be face to face, honestly. And this is what I would say. I think you've got great potential for you to go and, carry a team for 2-3 good seasons, like Olise has done, like Eze has done, like Willian has done, like De Cordova-Reid did for Fulham, and such players, right? But for you to be able to do that, you've got to be honest with yourself and honest with your talent. These are the clubs that are going to allow you all the time you want and all the trickery you want to do on the pitch, right? Like Crystal Palace had a player like Wilfred Zaha. Zaha could dribble, do whatever he could, and do whatever he wanted, score one, score two, assist one,
Mhm.
assist two, and they win the game. Zaha is the king. End of the Premier League season, Zaha has 12 goals and 11 assists. And you're like, this guy assists every game. This guy scores every game. How does he have 11 goals and 11 assists? He should be having like 20 goals and 25 assists. So that is, for me, that is Bruce Nelson. My conversation would be very brief and very, very precise. Go and make yourself useful at a club like Crystal Palace, Fulham. These days, we have seen that you can be called up. Like,
Mm.
how many players does Crystal Palace have for England? More than Arsenal, actually, isn't it?
3. Watson,
Three.
Eze,
Yeah.
Gehi. Yeah, a
I,
lot.
yeah, I think Arsenal have three as well. Ramsdale, Rice,
I think they have
and
Henderson, the goalkeeper, as well.
yeah, they have Dean Henderson as well.
So 4.
Yeah. So they're four. They're four players. Like it is unbelievable, right? So I
Mm.
I think with Rhys Nelson, what is shocking for me is that Arsenal have to be informed by Rhys Nelson that is going to assess his options. It should be the other way around. It should be Arsenal working with Rhys Nelson to find solutions for his future. And maybe because of that new contract, Arsenal don't don't want to look like kind of traitors, hypocrites. You've just given him a new
Do you
deal.
think you should have gotten that new contract? Do you think just be as harsh as possible? Do you think he overstayed his welcome at Arsenal?
Absolutely, absolutely. The only reason he signed that new deal was Mikel Arteta. If it
Mm.
was Mourinho, do you think he gets that deal? He absolutely doesn't, because we know
Mhm.
Mourinho will throw you under the bus. He'll say you're not good enough. He's not good enough. That's why he's not playing football. So I think with Rhys Nelson, he's overstayed his stay at Arsenal, and that contract is going to be a big problem. Like Arsenal feel like they have a lot of power to negotiate over a guy that they have not given any football, when he's been available and fit.
That was
Yeah,
going to be my next question. Do you also think, because people will say Ata never gives them chances anyway, do you think Ata's been harsh on him? He doesn't really get chances, or do you think he's actually just not good enough to get those chances?
I think Mikel knows that these players are not good enough. Edin Ketia is not good enough to stay at Arsenal. Reece
Mm.
Nelson is not good enough to stay at Arsenal. Albert Samilokonga is not good enough to stay at Arsenal, and a couple of others. We have seen him do it with Chambers, prolong his stay, and then eventually, he goes to Aston Villa for pennies. Then we've seen him prolong the stay of Rob Holding. He cost us a title, or one of the reasons why we lost the title. So I think he already knows that they're not good enough. Why he's giving them huge contracts? I mean, are you really protecting their value? If you're protecting their value, you can give them, you can, you know, improve their contracts, but really don't give them 100K a week. What is
Mm.
Crystal Palace supposed to do with 100K per week? What is Fulham supposed to do with 100K per week? What is like Nottingham Forest supposed to do with 100K per week for a
Mm.
player who they are not sure, walks straight away into their team and becomes as important? Now, if Palace are going to sell Olise for 60 million,
Yeah.
are you really going to tell me that they're going to sign one guy, and that's Rhys Nelson, to replace Michael Olise? Never in a million years. They're going to sign one, Rhys Nelson, and then they're going
Mm.
to go in Brazil maybe, and then sign another player, right? So for me,
Mm.
it's disastrous. Why that contract is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, but also it's kind of selfish for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, because maybe they know they're not yet ready to upgrade their project to the level they want, so they just want to keep these players around as homegrown players.
Interesting. That was a very good conversation in terms of our winger position. Let us know what you make of Nico Williams and also Reece Nelson. Lastly, let's go to left back. Now, according to reports from Graham Bailey, Arsenal have told both Alexander Zinchenko and Keatin that they are free to leave this summer, but want Jakub Kivior to stay. Club sources have not ruled out a departure for all three. So Kivior is also linked by Juventus. I'm here in Juventus preparing an offer and stuff like that. Out of now, we are going to talk about Tien in his own section, but Zinchenko and Kivior, if you had to predict right now, who do you think will stay and who do you think will leave? And do you think Arsenal are actually asking him to leave? Because for me, I usually feel like Atari loves like these players that he signs, Zinchenko and Jesus, in terms of what they're going to give him in terms of how he wants to play football. Do you think we've actually told Zinchenko that he's free to leave? And if we have, what could be the main reason?
If I was to predict who's going to leave between the two, I think Corinthian is already
No,
on
Zinchenko and Kivia.
it's Zinchenko and Kivio. Oh,
Yeah.
it's Alexander Zinchenko. Yeah, it's Alexander
Mm,
Zinchenko.
mm,
I think the reports that came out from the Athletic that both Alexander Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus will be sold if good offers come in. Those
mm.
reports were true. However, I think there is no rush to sell them. There's no rush to push them out. Now, with Alexander Zichenko, Mikel Arteta has made it clear that he doesn't have trust in any of the left backs at the club. Not Kivio, not Kerentiani, not Zichenko, not Julian Timber at the moment, right? So that means that if the manager is going to add a fourth left back, fourth or fifth, because we have Tomiyasu there as well, right?
Yeah.
So if the manager is going to add a fourth or fifth right left back to the team, and Alexander Zichenko, at some point in time, you considered yourself the the main left back at the club. Last season, without your main competition, Julian Timber, you were not the main left back. Without the main competition, who is Julian Timber, you've got to go. Uh, You've
Mm.
got to go. It is as clear as day. I think why Arsenal have told him that he can leave is, I think they're trying to be honest with him. He's a mature player and he's a mature guy. I don't think you would play around with his feelings the way you did with we did with Eddie Nketiah, the way we've done with you know, Rhys
Chris.
Nelson, give them new deals, and then tell them you're gonna play. Look at that goal you scored. Oh my God, you scored a hat trick. You're gonna play, and then next season. How many games did Edin Ketia? When did Edin Ketia stop playing for Arsenal? Like,
Yeah, I think around February. I think that game when he came on against Bayern Munich, I had not seen him but for like 2 months before that, and we never
exactly.
saw him again after that.
Exactly. When did Rhys Nelson really, you know, play an impactful minutes
Hmm.
for Arsenal? Even in the Luton game where the likes of ESR got a chance, he didn't get a chance in that game. So I think with Zinchenko is a little
I
bit
think I think
mature.
I think Nelson played and then came off. I think
Okay.
he's we caught an on goal, but he didn't have an impact. So people are
Okay.
complaining about him starting that game.
So I think it's not about with Zinchenko. It's not about playing with his feelings. It's about respecting him as a player. And they've told him the club is looking to sign another project in at left back for the process that's going on. So therefore, if you are not willing to get 10 games this season or 3 games like Edin Ketia, you might leave if you have offers.
That makes sense. Now, the other one who we definitely know is going to leave is Kieran Tierney. Now, according to reports on Kieran Tierney, Arsenal are ready to cut their losses on Kieran Tierney this summer, with the Gunners happy to accept just 10 million for the left back. Now, this was before we even saw Scotland playing. Now, he didn't look good in that game. So if teams are not able to pay 10 million after watching them get smashed 5 goals by Germany and them losing markers and all that, I'm telling you, because the teams might not want to pay 5 million for him. So why are you standing on Kieran? Are you just like, we have to get 20 million for this player? I know his abilities is just like heading to his prime right now. Are you like, whatever, just give us even 3 million, just let him go?
If there is one thing I agree with Arsenal fans, always in the comment sections of videos,
Mm,
is Arsenal are the worst sellers in Europe. Like,
mm, mm,
I agree with that, right?
mm,
Everything has changed at this football club, but terminating players' contracts, giving them contracts at the wrong time, selling them for zero money, selling
mm,
them for like less than 90% of what we should get, has stayed. Kieran Tierney had to leave Arsenal in 2022 or
mm,
2023. That was the right time for him to leave. Why would you
mm,
load him to Spain to
mm,
reassociate to a club that you know are never going to buy a Scottish guy?
mm.
Like, without an option to buy, without an obligation to buy, dry loan. What, like, this is a player you know you're not going to use. This is a player you know you're not going to give a
Was
chance.
there enough market for him, though? Was there enough teams that wanted him to pay?
I think that if Arsenal had decided to find a solution for
Mm,
Kieran Tierney, then the solution would have been much better than than now. And I'm going to ask you:
mm.
do you think he's more marketable right now or more marketable then?
Oh, then, because there were teams like Newcastle who wanted him. I remember, I think Aston
Definitely,
Villa wanted him.
definitely. So I think, I mean, Even Celtic then would give you 16 million. Now, as
Mhm.
I'm telling you, this is another for me. This is another 7-6 million deal. It was yes. This is another 6-7 million deal. It was foolish for Arsenal to think that
Mm.
after one season, it was us predicting that he's gonna go out there, have a very good loan spell, and his value is going to raise. His value has dropped below the 16 million that we would have got last summer. It is a 6-7 million deal. This is another Ben Leno deal.
If you had your own team, how much would you be wanting to pay for Tini right now? If you had your own team and you wanted Tini, how much would you be offering to pay?
If I had my own team, I would
Mm.
see him as a very good market opportunity. 5 million.
Wow, that is absolutely crazy. So
It's a good market opportunity because within 1 year's time, you could be getting him on a free.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. We should have sold him a couple of years ago. Same with Niall, same with Ketia. Now, where I'm going to give Edu and the pass for now is they still messed up with Lokonga and Tavares, but you're waiting to see how much they're going to get for them. These are not really their players. Now,
Mm.
I'm waiting to see how much they're going to sell Gabriel in the next 5 years. They're going to sell Saliba in the next 5 years because this one was not really bought by them. I want to see
Yeah,
now the players that they were bought and they're doing it.
but when you think about, I'll give you an example of a player like Ban Leno.
Mm,
I think Ban Leno should have, because Arsenal is an institution. You
mm,
come in a role and you leave. Imagine if we brought in a guy like Wilcox, the one that has gone to Man United, and he
mm,
takes on Edu's role
mm.
into into this Arsenal team right now, and then he says, "I want Eric Ten Hag as manager," and then both of them decide that we want different players from Saliba, Gabriel, and Odegaard and all, and then we start
Yes.
seeing Odegaard going on loan, and then Arsenal getting 10 million for Odegaard. Would you actually say that he's not their player? Let's wait and see what they do with their own players.
No. But you already know these players are quality. Now, Tierney was quality, but most of the players who've been cancelling their contracts, we know they've never really been good. The likes of Holding and those
I
players. Right
think
now,
I think I give an example of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I think his
mm,
situation was handled poorly. He had just
mm,
signed a new deal, and Arsenal could have maturely sold Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Like
you think he
Napoli
was just
agreed
trying
with.
to get rid of the players that he were under Emery? Maybe you're
Yeah,
just wanting to get rid of those
they were
players.
just trying to get rid of players that they found there, but
Mm,
some of them you could get some good man. Maybe like with Mr. Ozil, maybe I would
mm,
understand. I don't know whatever happened, transpired behind the scenes, but I would understand. But with Pierre Kamabeyang, is your captain. He had good spells, good seasons not far away ago. He eventually goes to Barcelona. Even a club like Barcelona still thinks that he's a good striker, he's a good player. I think that we would have sold Alexander
mm,
Lacazette. Why would you let his contract run down?
mm.
Rundown. Like, why?
Now,
If you're sure you're not going to use them, sell them. Even
mm.
if you get 10 million, even if you get 15 million, sell them.
Now Tierney's contract ends in 2026. Now, would you just sell him right now for that 10 million, or would you risk it again? Because 10 million is not really that much. Let's risk it again. Let's take him to another loan and let's hope next time we can get 20.
You've got to sell. You've got to sell.
Mm.
Arsene Wenger made a prediction. I think it was in 2000 around in 2010, 2011, and he said we are going to see more players running down their contracts in the future. That was like how many years? 15 years
Purposely,
ago.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, purposely in order to get big sign-on fees. We've seen it with
Mm.
Kylian Mbappe. We have seen it with Aubameyang. We have seen it with so many players, around Europe. So I don't think there is a stupid player who says, "Oh, let me sign a new deal." Well, I'm about to get some big money paid into my bank account by another club that's going to sign me, take me up on a free. So I still think that he's not signing a new deal at Arsenal. He already knows, when you hear his interviews and words, he already knows that his time at Arsenal is up. You've got to sell right now, or you're getting 0 million.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on as always. Watch me and Cozy later on his channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you on the next.